I'm going to talk about a man who was literally on top of the world with his game, and now the world's on top of him for his horrible conduct.
That is the great Polk County, Florida Sheriff Grady Judd talking about the latest alleged predator in the news. This time, it's a high school football coach who's accused of having inappropriate contact with teenage girls, including touching, sexually propositioning, and secretly watching. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. There are no cameras. There are no cameras. No, this is not the repeated statement of a burglar. No, rather, that is the alleged statement or statements of a high school football coach and teacher who has been accused of propositioning teenagers to have sex with him and touching at least one of them. We're talking about 31-year-old Tyler Eden out of Bartow, Florida, who is an educator and head football coach at Bartow High School. And now he's facing charges of lewd offense against a student by an authority figure, lewd and lascivious touching of a minor, and voyeurism. I'm going to get into those charges and what they mean a little bit later, but I want to read you the first allegation from the probable cause affidavit in this case that explains how on April 2nd, a school resource officer at Bartow made contact with the guardian of a 16-year-old girl who alleged that Mr. Eden touched her and made very creepy comments. The affidavit reads, on April 9th, 2025, a forensic interview was conducted with the victim. During the interview, the victim said Eden asked if she wanted to earn community service hours. Initially, the victim declined as she's only in 10th grade, but Eden insisted and told her it would be helpful. The victim agreed and went to the locker room where she began to sort football helmets. Eden then began to talk about a teacher who wanted to have sex with him while in the room. The victim said she told Coach that she didn't want to talk about that, but Eden continued. Eden continued the conversation, telling the victim that he was married, but still wanted to engage in sexual activity with the unidentified woman. The next day, the victim went back to perform more community service. The victim was helping Eden break down boxes, and her jacket got caught in one of the boxes, and the zipper busted open. The victim asked Eden to hand her one of the shirts, but Eden said he would help her fix it. Eden then unzipped her jacket all the way down, and the victim told him she was uncomfortable. Eden repeatedly tried to fix the jacket, but eventually handed her a t-shirt. Eden told the victim to go into another room to change, which she did. After she changed, she turned around and saw Eden standing in the doorway watching her. The victim asked why he was in the room, and he told her there repeatedly that there were no cameras in there and that he complimented her bra. In fact, more specifically, she claims he said, "That's a nice bra. I like that bra." Now, she was able to leave the room, even though Eden allegedly told her not to leave. Tell you what, let's listen to Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, fan favorite, one of my favorites. Listen to him describe this.
You know, maybe as a football coach, he's a slow learner. He over and over emphasized to her that there's no cameras here, there's no cameras here, there's no cameras here. This was not a passing statement. And she was scared, and she was upset, and she went to her parents. And he talked about, you know, when he was bragging, well, there's other teachers that want to have sex with me, and this is a perfect place because there are no cameras here. And, you know, I am married with children, and he is married with 2 children. I bet his wife is hot as a $2 pistol right now. If she's not, she should be.
All right, before we get more into this, I want to bring on David Ring, friend of the show. He's a nationally renowned trial attorney, specializes in sexual abuse cases, even represented a survivor in the Harvey Weinstein saga. David, so good to see you. Thoughts on this first claim from this 16-year-old?
Well, we have an absolute creep for a football coach and a teacher. This guy, Eden, obviously clearly had a plan. His plan was to, isolate this teenage girl in the locker room and then obviously try to talk her into engaging into some sexual activity. Absolutely horrible, illegal conduct. And it's great to hear that this county and this sheriff take this very, very, very seriously, and they're really going to go after this guy as they should.
Oh, and his picture was front and center on that press conference that was conducted by Grady Judd, and I have to imagine that was intentional. Let me ask you this, though, from a legal point of view, and I'm going to get to the charges in a minute. Assuming for a moment there's no surveillance footage, assuming for the moment there's no text messages, if this really only rests on her account, is that enough?
It is enough, because what it comes down to is her credibility as a witness. And so this teenage girl, she may have to take the witness stand at some point and say, here's exactly what happened. But her testimony in and of itself is enough to convict him. Now, look, it'd be great if there was some other corroborating evidence, if she had some text messages from him that were creepy and suggestive, or if there were some witnesses to what happened. But a lot of times there isn't, and that's why these victims are so courageous. They're willing to come into court, take the stand, and their testimony alone is enough to put a coach like this away.
By the way, totally off topic. Let me say that again. Totally off topic. Did you know that high blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for mortality? Yeah, 1 in 2 adults have it. Many don't even realize they're at risk. It is a silent killer that lurks unnoticed until, unfortunately, it's too late. The good news, though, you don't have to rely on big pharma to manage it. No, 120 Life is a blend of great tasting superfruit juices that's been shown to actually help lower blood pressure. It's trusted by hundreds of doctors and thousands of people who've seen real results. It's trackable too, by the way. Use a simple blood pressure monitor to see the changes yourself. Plus, completely risk-free. If you don't see lower numbers in 2 weeks, you get your money back. So in a world where every second counts, don't let high blood pressure be the threat that you never saw coming. Take control today. Visit 120life.com/sidebar and use code SIDEBAR or scan the QR code on screen to save 15%. By the way, assuming this is all true, one of the things that was emphasized by Grady Judd, and I think we should emphasize this in any of these cases, assuming these allegations are true, the fact that the 16-year-old reported it, the fact that the 16-year-old told her family what allegedly happened. You don't see that all the time, right?
You do not see that all the time. And so that's I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what struck me about this case when I was reading all the facts about it, is that you had this young teenager who immediately, didn't wait days, weeks, months. She immediately told her parents or her guardians that evening, and then kudos to the guardians or the parents who immediately told the school administration the next day. And the school administration, congrats to them. They got law enforcement involved right away. And so everyone did what they were supposed to do to make sure this didn't go further. Because look, what usually happens, if this coach had targeted a victim who was not able to stand up to him, he would have sexually assaulted her in the locker room. And this young lady, stood her ground, and she didn't let that happen, and she told the people she needed to tell.
And let me ask you this. So he was arrested. He was booked into the Polk County Jail. He's facing 3 charges, and they're interesting charges. So you have lewd offense against a student by an authority figure. This is a felony, and it criminalizes an authority figure soliciting or engaging in lewd conduct with a student. And here the allegation would be, the argument would be, by allegedly having these sexual conversations or these perceived sexual conversations, it falls in line with this charge. Then you have lewd and lascivious touching of a minor, also a felony. This is touching that makes it a crime for someone who's 24 years or older to intentionally touch in a lewd or lascivious manner the breasts, genitals, genital area, or buttocks, or the clothing covering them of a person 16 or 17 years of age. And then you got misdemeanor voyeurism for Eden allegedly secretly observing the victim while she was located in a structure where she had a reasonable expectation of privacy. That's the actual language that's used in the statute. And the victim, as we know, based on the allegation, was instructed to go to a separate room to change her shirt. The victim pulled the door closed, and while changing, the suspect pushed the door open and observed her changing her shirt while she had a reasonable expectation of privacy. That's in the filing. David, do all of these apply? What do I mean by that? Is there any room for the defense to say, I wasn't having these kinds of conversations with her? I wasn't open about what I was saying. There's room for interpretation. I touched her zipper. I didn't touch her shirt over that in an effort to touch her chest or anything like that. Is there room for an argument here?
There is not much room for an argument. These are legitimate charges given what we know about what happened. And I think what's interesting here is, and what's really to be taken away is the first charge he talked about, because this is a coach, a teacher. He's a head football coach in a position of authority over a student. And what did he do to draw her in? He offered her up community service. Hey, come to the locker room, help me sort out football helmets or open some boxes. And gee, I'll give you credit for community service, which, obviously is something that the school probably requires. He used that position to draw her in and then to take advantage of her and to isolate her and while she was alone with him in the locker room. So all those charges are absolutely legitimate. Sure, he's going to come in and oh, she misunderstood. I didn't say that. She got the wrong impression. But what's going to really defeat his claims on that, and you and I haven't gotten there yet, but we will. Is there's other female students out there who are going to
Yeah.
say he made the same creepy comments to me, and that's going to potentially come into evidence, and that's what's going to be the doomsday for him.
Oh, we're going to get to those two other alleged victims in this case as well. But I did want to ask you, I think the idea that you have this charge that I mentioned, the first charge, lewd offense against a student by an authority figure, the fact that it criminalizes soliciting or engaging in lewd conduct with a student, that feels so broad to me, but also specific. It says to me, and I don't know if you've seen this in other jurisdictions, there's a reason that's on the books, right? There's the reason something must have happened too many times that it wasn't criminalized, that they had to make this specific conduct criminal, and yet it is broad enough to include a lot of different alleged behavior.
Well, here's why. Because let's assume that type of crime was not on the books. This guy walks away, no charges. Why? Well, I didn't touch her. I didn't do anything sexual with her. I made these comments and all that, and maybe I tried to fix her zipper, but I never touched her sexually. I didn't touch any of her private parts, and he would get away with it. And that's why these particular charges, these particular crimes are on the books, because he was trying to do that. He didn't accomplish his ultimate goal, but he was certainly trying to get there. And so if we didn't have this lewd and lascivious criminal conduct on the books that you could charge him with, he could do all of that behavior and not be criminally charged. And so that's why it has to be broad. The charge has to be broad. And yet, I think the prosecutor and the sheriff in this case are smart enough to know, hey, we've got enough facts in this case where we can actually, get a conviction on these charges, because that's exactly what this guy was trying to do. There's really no room for misinterpretation here. He was trying to sexually assault this girl.
Yeah, and according to the Polk County Sheriff's Office, Eden allegedly asked that she not report what happened, but she ended up telling her family. And when asked by school administrators what had occurred, Eden allegedly first said that he only provided the student with a shirt, and then as he was told that he was being placed on administrative leave, he said that he wanted to admit something, and then told the staff, or apparently told the staff at the student's request, that he attempted to just help her fix her zipper. So again, we're starting to see what you were talking about, an explanation. Now, the affidavit also indicates that the officer went to Eden's home to try to interview him, but he apparently indicated he wanted to have an attorney present, which, that's his right. The concerning thing is that the allegations, as we were talking about, they don't end with this 16-year-old alleged victim. No, apparently, two other female students came forward with their own accusations against Eden during the course of this investigation. So you have one who claims that 2 weeks before this locker room incident with the 16-year-old, she was walking the track when Eden asked her what she wanted to do when she was out of school, to which she replied that she wanted to be an OBGYN. And the affidavit claims that Eden laughed and allegedly said to her that he would be a good OBGYN because he liked to perform oral sex on women. Then you have another accuser, another female student, who claims that she asked Eden to do community service, and at one point he allegedly tells her that she had to leave because his mistress was on her way. And then he allegedly began talking about how he had access to an area with no cameras and how it would be so easy to do certain things there. He then allegedly proceeded to talk about temptation and how popular he is and how one teacher sexually propositioned him, although according to Grady Judd, there's never been any person who came forward to say that ever happened. David, so now let's talk about these two other accusers, okay? Talk to me about what you make of their allegations. And legally speaking, as far as I know, assuming for the moment, it seems like he's only criminally charged with respect to the 16-year-old. I don't know if he could be criminally charged with respect to maybe the conversations with these individuals, but even if not, can their testimony come into a trial with respect to the 16-year-old? So I asked you a lot of questions there, but A, what do you make of their accounts? And B, could their accounts come into evidence in the current trial or the current case?
Look, when you have a coach who's engaging in this type of behavior, it is very rare that there's only one victim. And so it does not surprise me one bit that they found other girls at the high school who he had attempted to isolate and tempted to take advantage of. And again, it goes to the school or the authorities for doing a great investigation and finding these other witnesses who are crucial to a case like this. To answer your question, yes, these two other girls will be able to testify in court about what he did because it goes to his motive, his MO, his
Not
method of
propensity,
operation.
not propensity, right?
Not propensity, but there's a fine line between those things in a courtroom. And so this type of evidence will come in because it goes to show that he had a plan, and not just a plan with the girl that he's criminally charged with. He had a plan with these other two girls, and he attempted the same thing. Hey, community service, come in here and
No
come to the
cameras.
locker room. No cameras. And here's the other thing that these perpetrators do, and that this coach Eden did, is they introduce sexual conversations. They introduce sexual talk into the conversations, and hoping that they'll find a victim who will listen and not and kind of engage in them. And so that's exactly what this guy did. He's talking about, having an affair or having sex in the locker room, or gee, there's no cameras in the locker room, we can fool around in here. And he's trying to see if they will engage in that. And if they do, he's going to take advantage of that. And so that's part of his MO, which is going to come into the criminal trial. And these two other girls are going to be crucial witnesses because without them, like you said, it's a tougher case. It's a he said, she said.
Right.
But with these other two girls, much stronger criminal case.
And when I said propensity, by the way, I basically mean that you can't introduce evidence of somebody's character trait. They acted in conformity with that kind of character trait. Oh, they did this. That means they must have did that. That doesn't work. But obviously there are exceptions, as David was mentioning. Now, talking about other people coming forward, I want to play you again, Grady Judd, the sheriff here, Polk County, talking about what his concern is.
But here's my concern. My concern is how many other students, how many other children, teenage girls has he hit on? And was he able to successfully groom any of them who are now embarrassed and afraid to report it? We need to know that. He's locked up on felonies in the county jail. We don't have any football team in jail, so we don't need to worry about him coaching anything.
So David, Sheriff Judd's concern is that what happens if Eden had hit on or groomed others and they're afraid to come forward? So do you think it's possible there are more people out there who have information about Mr. Eden, assuming these allegations are true? And if so, what are the ways to have them come forward, to encourage them to come forward?
Well, there usually are. And off the top of my head, I don't know how long he was a coach and teacher there, but obviously the longer period of time that he's there, the more potential for more victims. So they've already figured out that there's at least two other girls who he tempted to take advantage of. I'm guessing there's probably more. Usually law enforcement is very effective at trying to locate other victims. They can do it through a press release or media coverage. And usually at the end of the story, they say, if you have more information, call the sheriff at this number. And you'd be
Yeah.
surprised. People do that. Other victims do that. I can't tell you how many times other victims have come forward because law enforcement has put their law enforcement's phone number at the end of the press release, and is put into the news story, and it says, call us if you have information about this. And people do call. And on the flip side, there's other victims who don't want to get involved
Yeah.
or scared and don't want to come forward. And it takes a lot to get them to come forward. And you might have an idea who they are, and you might even talk to them, and they might deny it. And you're like, hey, something happened there, but they're not ready to talk. And that's can be a problem too.
And Sheriff Judd, he emphasized, as I mentioned before, how important it is that they come forward, particularly, the 16-year-old telling her family, and how true that is, and how important that is. It's interesting because Sheriff Judd also said, not only is this highly inappropriate behavior by a teacher, imagine just how frightened this student was. Here was a male teacher who was already discussing lewd behavior and zipping her clothes, then following her into a locker room where he remarked that there are no cameras and complimenting her undergarments. This guy is a total creep, and now he's going to jail. We are not going to tolerate school teachers and coaches preying on our children. According to the Ledger, Eden, by the way, let's give a little bit of his history, started as a PE teacher and coach at Bartow back in April of 2023. So David, you asked how long he's been there, something to think about. And he previously served as an offensive coordinator at University School in Ohio and Davenport High School. He played college football at Lake Erie College as well. Now, Polk County Public Schools, they indicated that they are firing Eden, and Superintendent Fred Hyde released a statement saying it's unconscionable that an educator and coach would engage in this kind of behavior with students. This individual has shown that he cannot be trusted and deserves to face justice for his actions. We commend the Polk County Sheriff's Office for their thorough investigation and for taking action to protect students. So, David, assuming these allegations are true, and again, he's innocent until proven guilty, should there be an internal investigation at the school? What role does the school play?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't just end when he gets arrested. If it's a responsible school or school district, they should absolutely formally look into what happened, and they're in the best position to determine if there's other victims out there. They're the ones who hear the rumors among the students. Hey, he did this to maybe this girl. And so I think it's imperative that the school does their own internal investigation to see, how did this guy get hired? Were there any red flags before he got hired? Were there red flags after he got hired and was working at our school, and somehow we ignored them or didn't act upon them? And I think that makes the school it's a check and balance where the school's like, okay, hey, maybe the school did everything right in this case. It sounds like they did. Or there's a lot of schools that don't do everything right. And a guy like this, they don't report it to the authorities. They just talk to him and say, don't do that again. And then he keeps doing it. So again, the investigation's important. So far, everything I've heard about this school and school district, they're to be commended for how they've handled this.
Now, in terms of what's happening right now, it's a little murky. He had a first court appearance this week. The case was then reportedly continued for purposes of pretrial detention, but I'll tell you, at the time of this recording, we haven't seen any further information about this. We still believe his arraignment is scheduled for May 20th. But I'll tell you what, let me actually end with Sheriff Grady Judd, okay? If you don't know who he is very unique, quite a character. We always love seeing what he has to say. And he's never shy about what he has to say, including with respect to the allegations facing Mr. Eden. Take a listen.
So at the end of the day, he's coached his last football game. He fumbled. He's going to be held accountable. And the good guys win.
David Ring, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe and come check us out at YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.